Hi guys, Will Terry here. This is a brand new year, and this video is called Help, How Do I Plan My Art Career? Now before I get going on that, I just have to say this was an amazing year. I hope you had an amazing year. And I am battling off a cold, so if I cough during this or if my voice starts to go out, I apologize. I just want to say I'm going to read a letter from someone who follows my YouTube here. And I just want you guys to know I get a ton of letters. Some of you I have told I will answer your letters in a video, and I haven't gotten to them. It doesn't mean that they're dead. It's just hard to get to everything, and so I apologize if I've told you I was going to do a video for you and I didn't. I'm trying to balance a lot of plates right now, and I have some pretty cool announcements coming up in early 2019. Things I've been working on, some big projects that I've been working on that I haven't been able to share. I haven't been posting stuff to my Instagram because it's stuff that I either can't post or I don't want to post because I want to save it for my launch. And so I've been working really hard this year, especially towards the end of this year, but it doesn't show because I haven't been posting stuff. Anyway, I'm going to read this letter. And it's kind of long, but I figure, like I've said before in my videos, you guys are drawing. Get your iPad out, get your pad of paper out, your sketchbook, and just let this run in the background. And maybe some of the things that Casey here is going through are things that you can relate to. So anyway, I'm gonna try to skim and read some of this, and hopefully it's not too long here. So. A little bit about me. I'm 28 years old and have been drawing my entire life. I've had minor success as a freelance artist, mainly in landscape painting and pet portraiture, which are not really my biggest passion. I think it's really good that you can identify the things that aren't your biggest passion, first off, because I think a lot of artists, we fall in love with, and I was the same when I started out, we fall in love with the fact that we get paid for doing some art. And that's like an early stage of being a professional illustrator. Is, you're getting paid for making art, but if you're not getting paid for making the art that you want to make, it's the money that you're getting is actually going to lock you into doing something that you will soon grow tired of, and it will show in your work. And so it's good that you can identify that. So you also work as a full-timer in a non-art related job. And you're married and you have 2 cars, 4 dogs, and let's see, I always had thought that working as a concept artist in the video game industry would be awesome, but I live in the Midwest in Indiana where I was born and raised. I feel trapped because all of my family's here and I don't want to leave them, and I totally understand that. But any concept work would typically require me to move somewhere far away, which neither my wife or I want. I also have a passion for storytelling and would love to work in comics or in the children's book field. I don't have much desire to illustrate other people's work. That's cool too. Knowing what you want is huge. I've run into this issue where my wife wants to have kids because we're almost 30, but I feel like if we have them right now, any chance of me trying to get some sort of career related to art will be gone for at least 5 years until the child is in school, and that's only considering we have 1 child. And lastly, I never went to college or art school. But I'm going to back up for a second on the kid thing. And number one, I'm not going to try to answer, when you should have kids. That's a very personal decision. I will say this though, that, and I think that there are studies, I've heard people mention this before in videos that I've watched online, that when you have children, it actually creates more of a sense of urgency for you to earn and to work harder. And people that don't have kids often flounder a little bit more. Single people tend to. I feel like this is. You guys can fact check me on this. I'm not going to claim that this is accurate, but I've heard that single people tend to bounce from one job to another more easily than people that are married, and then especially people that are married with children, simply because you can't afford to. And so from what I understand, the people with more responsibilities tend to develop more patience at work, develop more of the ability to work longer hours, develop more love for what they are doing, and feel more grateful for the job that they're having or that they currently have. Whereas if you're single, you have more freedom, and because there's no one relying on you, you're able to make riskier decisions. And I get what you're saying. I actually think that having kids grounds you and makes you work harder. And when we had kids, it definitely, I mean, it puts stress, but it's you only, when you're contemplating having kids, I will say this, you only think of the negatives. You don't understand all the positives that come. And when you do have finally your kids get there, you're like, oh, so this is why people do it, because it's awesome in so many other ways. Yes, it sucks that your kid just destroyed. Like I remember when we used to have speakers, nice big stereo speakers. The first thing, I had this really nice stereo when I got out of college, and that was like the first thing I bought when I got my first job. And right away, my little toddler pushed in the little bubble on the speaker. So your stuff's gonna get ruined, but the benefits outweigh the negatives, and the only way you're ever going to know that is, by having kids. But I wouldn't say that kids are going to stop you from an art career. I mean, at least in my mind. So let's see. Lastly, I never went to college or art school. I was in college for a year, but my parents refused to pay if I went in the art department. That sounds familiar. I have a nice college in my own town, but no art schools. So here are the questions. Do I need to move somewhere else to attain any sort of professional art career where I'm employed with benefits? Can I do anything like that from home? So it's interesting because I can think of examples. Like when I read your letter, I think of examples of people, and here's a spoiler alert for this. For all my answers, they're going to be vague. They're going to be, I'm going to give you anecdotes on both sides. And that's basically how when I advise my boys, I like to give them, I like to help them identify their options. And I like to also I like to help people question their preconceived notions or things that they've concluded that might not be based in fact. And so I know people who, like Jake Parker, who sits on the other side of the cubicle from me here, who, and he's not here today, so I can talk about him freely. He has leveraged, and I know a lot of people in this situation where they've worked for a major studio, and they're able to leverage that. Once you work for Disney, you can always you can always introduce yourself as Disney artist such and such, or Pixar artist, or Blue Sky or whatever. Jake worked for Blue Sky, and he has, I think you get kind of a guaranteed following online if you have that in your resume. If you are doing anything on social media, and people know that you have that connection, because there are so many people trying to work for those companies that they tend to follow people who have worked there, because they're trying to gain access. They're trying to gain. Also they admire people. It's a validation when you've worked for one of those big companies. It's automatically it says, well, you were good enough to work for Disney, or you were good enough to work for Blue Sky. Therefore, you are in this category up here, and you'll never be down here again. You're somewhere from here up to here, but everyone can kind of vouch for you. And I've seen a lot of artists be able to leverage that title into their other projects. So if they're doing like a Kickstarter for a comic, you mentioned that you want to get into comics. If they want to launch some sort of a product on their own, whether it's crowdfunded through a company like Kickstarter or on their own, they can make their social media posts and their videos introducing, I worked for Disney for X amount of years, blah, blah, blah. Instantly, their audience is going to, go, okay, well, I'm not I'm not going to be backing a project by someone who is just has no idea what they're doing. Okay, so there's that. So that's a huge benefit to, I would say, to working for one of those companies. The huge downside for getting one of those jobs is, let's say you move to one of those areas in California or Texas or Canada or any one of these places where there's a studio back east in Vermont. Now you've moved, you've got this job, you're going to start having kids. You get an apartment, you're trying to save up for a house. The pay that you will get from these companies is, at least in the, let's say, the first 5 to 10 years, is never going to be enough money. It just isn't. Employers always pay you just enough so that you won't leave. That's pretty much what in business. That's basically the game is. I need to pay employees so that they're happy. But quickly, you will realize that you're underpaid. You're just not, but the alternative is it's harder to move somewhere else. It's harder to pick up and drag up and it's expensive to move. And so you're kind of locked in. And so to me, that's the danger, is now you're having kids, but you are reliant on this new job, and it makes it harder for you to do your own thing. Now, not impossible, but you have to be in the mindset of, if once you get one of those jobs, if you are able to get one of those studio jobs that are really tough to get, you have to be in the mindset of creating after hours, still working on you said you want to do children's books and or comic books and stuff. Those projects have to be, that has to be your 20, 30 year goal. You have to, in your mind, say, I right now I have traded some of my time, some of my life to this company for money, and in return I'm getting experience, and I'm getting a pedigree, and I'm getting a network, and I'm all those things that you're going to get from that job. So that's great. But my main focus is getting my children's book done, my comic book done, my fill in the blank project done. If you look at a job as the goal, then you're basically saying, as an artist, you're saying someone else's dreams are my dream. Like you don't have anything that originates with yourself. And to me, that's scary, because those are the artists that I see that tend to atrophy, and not always. And we talked about this in our podcast. I don't think it's been released yet, but Jake and Lee and I talked about this in our 3 Point Perspective podcast, that some people really do thrive in the job, and that the job is the end goal for them, and they tend to do really well. I would say those people are the people who are really making and pulling the strings in the company. So they're the creative directors, the head of story, things like that, where they really have input, so that when they look at the end product, they can go, I am responsible for that. I came up with that idea. I came up with this idea. This whole area was me. That was my idea. And I wouldn't, you said in here you're not really that interested in illustrating other people's dreams and stuff. I would look at that too. I would maybe counsel you to reevaluate that idea and say, some other people's ideas are not going to gel with me, and I won't want to illustrate them. And that's what happens with me. I get book contracts, or not contracts. I get book manuscripts sent to me to consider, with a request. Do you want to illustrate this? If so, we'll send you a contract. And I turn down a lot of them simply because I read them and I don't feel anything. Nothing inside of me moves. It's just like, it's a dumb idea. I don't like this story at all. I don't want to spend 3 or 4 months, 5 months working on this idea, and this imagery is not doing it for me. It's either boring or it's stupid, or most of them come across that way. But there are some where I read them and I go, man, I wish I wrote this. This is awesome. And when you get a manuscript like that, you can make it yours because you're in love with that manuscript. So I would say, there's a huge range in when you talk about illustrating other people's ideas and dreams. And it might sound like I'm contradicting myself a little bit, but you can really fall in love with a lot of the projects you're on. You can also, when you're, if you're working in a studio, a lot of the people hate, they'll get a big project that comes along and they can't wait to get it finished because they're hating that project and they want to get on to the next one. So as far as working for another company, I think those are the kind of the pros and cons there. Here's another one here. Let's see. If I don't work on other people's projects, is there hope that my own projects will take off? Or do I need to bite the bullet and work on someone else's project just because it will make me look better? And that kind of goes along with what we were already talking about. And I think that, yes, as you're building up a body of work in general, and I don't think I've looked at your website. And if I have, then I apologize. I look at a lot of people's work, but I would say on that one, that it's very rare that a publisher will gamble on somebody that doesn't have a pretty decent portfolio of sequential artwork that they really love. So there's a two-parter. One, you have sequential artwork, and two, it's sequential artwork that when the art director or the editor sees it, they go, "Oh, we have to hire this person. Look at this." And working on someone else's book is going to hopefully give you that. Now, if you work on someone else's book and it's not your best work and you couldn't fall in love with it and you took it just because it was going to give you portfolio pieces, but it was uninspired and so it gave you crappy portfolio pieces, that doesn't help you either. So you have to have, if you're going to work on someone else's project, it has to be something that you love. And I do believe that you can fall in love with, I have had stories before where at first they were kind of like, oh, well, it's okay. It's decent. And then as I got into it, I started getting really positive and really creative and going, oh, I could do this and this and this and this. And then I turned some of those pieces into some of my best work. I think a lot of it is what you bring to a project. It's your attitude. As an artist, your attitude goes right into your work. If you're having a bad day, you're not going to do your best work. If you're really pissed off, the times that I've gotten into arguments with my wife where we've just been really upset with each other, those are often days where I've just done something else, where I just am like, I can't draw today. I can't work. I'm too upset. So yeah, your attitude is definitely going to go into the work. So that's my advice on working on someone else's project is if you can love it. And if you can't, you probably shouldn't, unless you really need the money. The first part of my career, the first 10 years, I can tell you I worked on so many projects that I hated, but it paid our bills. And if I like to say, or I like to think in my mind, if I had it to do over again, I would take more of the track that Brett Helquist took, which is ironic. I got to meet with Brett Helquist over the weekend. It was pretty cool. He's the guy that illustrated the series of unfortunate events. His parents live in my neighborhood, and he was home for the holidays. But his choices in the beginning of his career were that he didn't take anything that he didn't love. And he meticulously worked on every piece and never turned out any crap. And just had, that was his mindset, and his work ethic was, I need good portfolio pieces more than I need a paycheck. And in the beginning, financially, I know they suffered, but he bled for his artwork. And because he turned everything into gold, basically, I think I was the goose that was laying bronze eggs, and he was the goose that was laying gold eggs. And when you lay gold eggs, everyone's like, well, look at this gold here, and will you work on my project? And for me, I think it slowed me down a little bit because they were like, well, there's a bronze egg and there's another one, and oh, there's a silver one, and so that I think if I had it to do over again, I would try to go more that track of just doing amazing work and knowing that. I mean, trying. Obviously, your amazing work is a sliding scale, and it's going to get more amazing over time. But you do the best that you could possibly do at the level you're currently at. Okay, so if I have a kid today, is that going to stop me from creating art and getting work tomorrow? I think we kind of already went over that one. And I mean, I think kids are awesome. I think that they teach you and they ground you and they give you more meaning in your life, more enjoyment, and there's lessons that you learn, and your artwork will be influenced by having kids in positive ways. And I wouldn't. I don't think that it's an either or situation. Okay, and then the final question he says here is, and I guess this question is the most important of all. Do I need to go to university or art school to be successful in the first place? Am I wasting my time because I don't have a diploma? And by the way, I subscribe to SVS. Yay! There's a link in the description. That's my online art school, illustration school. Shameless plug. So do you need to go to art school or university? I'm going to tell you this. If you don't go to an art school, you're always going to feel like you didn't go to an art school until you attain greatness. So for instance, Jake, he didn't go to art school. He went to a community college for a semester and then realized he was better than everybody else. And there are a bunch of people in that situation who didn't go to art schools. And then, I will say this, the majority of illustrators that I know that are successful went to art school or went to university that had a decent illustration program. Now, having said that, that's because I'm old and times are changing. And of course, all the people that I know that have a career developed that career before online options were available. So time will tell how many people in the future we see that are successful artists that don't go to art school. I can tell you that, and obviously there's an incentive for me to say, hey, all you need is to subscribe to SVS, stay subscribed, buy all of our classes, and that will be it. That will be perfect for you. But I'm not going to say that. And the reason I'm not going to say that is I'm just not that self-serving. I think what we do is awesome. And I think that it depends a lot more on you and your personality. I feel like I was the type of person who needed to go to school. Then again, I don't know how I would be with online options today. I will say this, that, and I don't want to make this a huge, long pros and cons about art school and not going to art school, but I guess I'm going to. It's such an interesting question but it's so multifaceted that there's no right or wrong answer. One of the things that's interesting to me is when I was teaching at UVU up until last year, and I taught there for 9 years, I could not teach as well at school as I can teach online, and simply because of, and you can't see it here, but my Cintiq monitor. They never provided me a classroom with a Cintiq monitor for me to draw over other people's work. I would take my iPad in, and iPads got better, and now that we've got the iPad Pro, it's pretty cool because I can project that at school on the LCD projector. But I couldn't teach like Photoshop stuff because they didn't have it on the iPad. Now they say they're going to get it on the iPad, right? This is going down another little tangent here. I don't think that Adobe's version of Photoshop, I'm going to say it here, you heard it here first. I don't think Adobe's Photoshop for the iPad is going to be nearly as useful or as effective as Procreate. I just don't think it is. I think Procreate came out and they developed from the beginning with the idea of keeping everything lightweight, easy to manage, keeping the surface area large to draw on, and Photoshop is a big, huge behemoth company that's not. You're going to be so many layers deep to get to tools. It's going to be so clunky. You're not going to have key commands. I just don't see it working. I see Procreate as still being the leader, but we'll see. Anyway, I couldn't teach as well at school as I can just right here from my studio, teaching someone online, making videos, or working with them one-on-one and drawing over their work because of technology. Now, some schools have really good technology. Like you go to the expensive ones and they have full classrooms full of Cintiq monitors. So if you can afford, like, I would say this, like I have known so many really good artists that went to Art Center. You pay through the nose. You come out of there $150,000 in debt if you don't have the money, right? But on the other hand, there's so many artists that come out of there that get work. Now, obviously, they're going to have more artists not working than artists working, just like any school. But their percentage of graduates who go on to do, have amazing art careers, I think this is just a guess. I would guess it's the highest, if not, it's definitely one of the highest, if not the highest. And they have really good teachers, and they know what they're doing. You go to an art school, you go to a university with an art program or an illustration program, and I can guarantee you're going to get a few really good teachers, and you're going to get a bunch of crappy teachers. You're going to get some that are just amazing and that are going to hopefully make the whole experience worth it. So it's ironically, you're going to go there and you're going to take, I don't know how many classes total, like 60, 70 classes or something like that. You're going to take all these classes and you're going to remember 2 or 3 of them out of that whole group. And you're going to pay tens of thousands of dollars, and you're going to say, the only thing that made it worth it were these couple of classes. Now, if those couple of classes and those couple of teachers make it worth it enough, and you end up with a career, then it's worth it. If you don't, you're going to probably say that wasn't worth it, and you're going to feel like you're going to waste a lot of time there. Now, for me, I felt like I needed that experience because at the time I didn't go to school having any clue what the illustration field even looked like. I had no idea what it was like at all. And I didn't know, I wasn't self-motivated enough to find out that information on my own. So if I hadn't gone to art school, I don't think I'd be doing this right now. I don't think I'd have a career in art. I really do feel like I owe my art career to my art school at BYU, where I went into the illustration program there. Now, I don't know what it would be like today because information flows freely, and because there are Facebook groups and there are people online talking, and there's chat rooms, and there's podcasts like our 3-Point Perspective podcast. By the way, if you guys aren't subscribed to that on iTunes or on I think Spotify is another one. We've got a link to it on our website. You can get to it through my links below. But it's an illustration podcast. We had nothing like that. If I was coming up now, I might be able to do it without going to art school. I don't know. So I would think though that if you don't go to art school, you're always going to feel like you're kind of a second class citizen in the illustration world, and you shouldn't feel like that. But I know that it's going to be natural whenever we're uncredentialed. I never graduated from my program. I still have 2 or 3 classes left. I started working as an illustrator and never fully graduated. For the first 5 years, that bugged me, that I never completely finished. And when, it would come up in conversations and I would go, I never actually finished. Now, I hate to say it, but I almost wear it as a badge of honor, simply because I feel like the college system is antiquated, and I feel like it's a system that is being propped up by opinion In other words, you're not educated until you've gone to college. And for some fields, that's true. There are some, I think it's probably, college is probably the most efficient way to become an engineer. It's probably the most efficient way to do most of the sciences, because with science, it's either right or wrong. You need to get the information. You need to learn. But then you just talk about other things where it's not science. So, for instance, business. We're working here in this building where we're at. We're in a startup building, which is based. It's a building that was designed for startup companies. So we had to apply to get in here with SVS. We got in here because we had a little startup company, and we filled out the application. They thought we'd be perfect because we did video, and this building is all about video. And we met with these other guys who at their company was. We've met everybody in the building, but we've worked with other people in the building too. Some of the people in the building have shot some of our videos. But more importantly, we've met guys who are really good in business, and they have told us, well, like two guys that are advising us right now, one of them didn't go to school, and the other one did, and said he went through the business program and said that nothing that he's using right now he got from school. Everything they're using to get ahead with internet marketing, they're learning from other people who are doing internet marketing, and they're all sharing ideas, and they're sharing the new Facebook apps that are coming out and going to trainings and things like that on their own, and hiring people that know how to do things that they don't know how to do. And technology and information is moving so fast. Business is not a science. There are aspects of it. The analyzing numbers and crunching data and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a science to that. But as far as marketing and advertising go, and entrepreneurship, that's an art. And you have to learn those things on your own. So school is going to give you some of the tools that you need. But it's not going to give you everything. What's going to work for you more than anything else is your work ethic, how much you're willing to sacrifice, how much you're willing to basically commit yourself as an artist, and decide, where your priorities are, and how important it is for you to work on your own projects. I interviewed Jason Brubaker. If you haven't watched that video, you should watch that one a few videos back a couple months ago. And, he's a guy who left the studio job to be able to work on his own. And I didn't ask him this because I thought it was too personal, but I have this sneaky feeling that he's making, money-wise, he's making the same or less than he was at the studio. Now, I could be totally wrong. He could be making more, and I'm not trying to start a rumor or anything, but I feel like he probably took a slight step backwards. Or at least maybe he's making the same amount of money, but he doesn't have the benefits that he had in the studio. As a net, he's trying to gather himself so that he can take 3 or 4 steps forward, and making quite a few sacrifices to be able to work at home on his own, and to be able to get ahead with his comics that he's working on. You have to have the overall goal in your life that your life is going to be filled with creating. And you're going to create things that you have no idea about right now. They aren't even thoughts. You're going to be able to create these amazing things that aren't even on the horizon, or aren't even on the radar. And that's because the other steps that you're going to go through, the other projects that you're going to go through, are going to be stepping stones, and they're going to lead to idea generation that you're not even thinking down those roads right now. But none of that's going to happen unless you have a long-term commitment for your life. And I've met so many people who are in other careers who say, "Oh, I love to draw," and I'll see their little doodles and stuff and their little drawings, and they're not. You can tell that they have fun doing it, but they're also not. They're not thinking, or they don't believe in themselves to work on a project long term. So they do little doodles from time to time, and then they won't draw for months, and then they'll pick it up again. And I think part of the problem that they're having is, and let me say that there's nothing wrong with drawing just for fun and doing those kinds of things, but I think that a lot of them have this idea that in their mind, and I think this comes from school, where if I'm not employed doing this, if I don't have a job, then I don't have any right to think of myself in this regard, right? I don't have the what gives me the right to think that I could create something that people would want, and that would generate a lot of money, right? So let me give you an example. These guys that we're working with in this building, and hopefully I'll make a video about their product down the road. We've kind of talked about that a little bit, but I'm not going to talk about it in this one specifically. But I will say that they came up with a product that isn't earth shattering. It's not amazing. It's not innovative. It's just better and more organized than what you can buy on the market. So like if you went on Amazon, you could buy this product that they sell, but theirs is better because they've put more engineering into it. And they basically just improved a product. And they went on Kickstarter and raised $1.6 million with this product that is good. But mostly what they did was they believed and they dreamed, and they used their marketing skills to attract the right people that would want this thing. And without going into a lot of details, they found their audience. They found the people that really do appreciate the extras and the engineering that went into this product. They're not engineers, and they didn't make the product. They just had an idea for it, and they worked with a company to make it for them. And then they bought the units from this other company in Vietnam, and yeah, they're making a ton of money. And that was their third successful Kickstarter. They're planning for their fourth and fifth right now. And the problem that a lot of artists have is we don't understand how valuable our contributions are. And we don't understand that all these guys and gals that are going to business school, they are dreaming about, making a decent living. Some of them are dreaming about owning their own business. Some of them are dreaming about, managing other people's businesses, but all of them pretty much have in mind the fact that they want to have a better life, and they want to earn good money. But the thing they don't have, most of them, they don't have a product. They don't have their own product, and you do. As an artist, like you're talking about creating your own graphic novel or children's book or comic book, they can't do that. And so if you can work on your own product and get it to where it's really good, and the people that are like you that love it, because obviously you wouldn't do it if you didn't love it. So the other yous out there, if you could find them, they would buy it. And there are millions of other yous out there. So you just have to find the trick is finding those people, and that's what they're learning how to do. So if you can combine what those people are learning in business school and what people are learning on their own, like I talked about, and you combine it with your product, you can make a lot of money. And so I personally, I know I'm rambling, I'm going off on all kinds of different tangents and stuff. I just don't see a need to go to university or art school. I see that as a way to be successful as an illustrator. I also see it as a way to come away with a lot of debt. And I also see online options. I mean, there's svslearn.com. That's one. There's Schoolism. There's a ton of other ones out there. And there will be more in the future. This is with the cost of entry. The biggest difference I would say is that if you're gonna stay home and work online, then you have to be very, very self-disciplined. You have to somehow treat it, like, okay, so today it's New Year's Eve and I'm here in the office and no one else is in here. That means I'm more committed than Jake, right? And the interns. No, I mean he's at home working. I saw some of the stuff that he's working on. He's got a new iPad and he's working at home. You have to be committed to where you're willing to. The guys I play racquetball with, they're playing this morning because the gym's going to close at noon. And I should have gone in there, but there was stuff that I need to get done. I wanted to get this video done, and I have a bunch of other things that I want to get done today before we have our little New Year's Eve party tonight. And I just I work when I need to get work done, and I've just told myself you've got to you've got to set goals and you got to get your work done. If you do that with school, and you do that with an online school, and you're self-motivated enough, I don't think you need to go to art school. If you're not, and you need the threat of a bad grade to motivate you, then pay the money and go to school and do it. And maybe paying the money and going to school will connect you with the right people, the people that will change your life, the teachers and other students. And you might hear the right information that will help you make the right decisions that you'll look back on and go, I wouldn't have been able to do it without going to art school. We have tons of students who are getting published right now from SVS, and we get testimonials all the time. We have letters on the wall that people have sent in that have said, you changed my life. I couldn't have done it without you. I think there are multiple paths that you can take to get to the same place. And if you interview successful artists, successful illustrators, everybody has a different story. And it's a combination of art school and online or online only, or it's a combination of, coming in from, there are some illustrators who started off as art directors because they went into the graphic design route and they learned about illustration from working with illustrators at their job at the publishing company. And then they started illustrating on their own time, and then boom, they turned into an illustrator and they left their art director job, and now they illustrate children's books. There's so many different ways that people have come into this. People that have come into illustration from fine art, where they've developed their skills as a fine artist, and then they start looking at children's books and they go, well, I could do a children's book that has more of a sensitive artistic feel to it. And there's some successful illustrators that have come that direction. So there isn't a path. There isn't a right and wrong. It really comes down to how hard you're willing to work for it, and if you're willing to look long term to make it a lifelong goal. There's people, and I understand the motivation to want to know, am I going to be successful I get letters sometimes that say, I need to know if I'm good enough to make money with my art in a year, because if I can't, I'll have too many bills and I've got student loans that I need to be paying off. And if I'm not going to be making money with my art in a year, I need you to tell me so I can quit now and go do something else. And to me, that person should probably quit now and go do something else because their mindset isn't in the right place. You can't place a deadline on your success. It would be convenient if you could. It would also strip a lot of the excitement out of and a lot of the reward out of what you're working on. I don't quite know how to say it, but if you could see the future, our lives would be really boring, right? And we would make a lot of bad decisions, I think, if we could see the future. We'd make a lot of good decisions too, but life would be really boring. So you're never going to know if you're doing the right thing, but then again, you will know you're doing the right thing if you're working hard. You will learn. You're going to learn no matter what. You're going to learn, and you're going to make decisions that will affect future decisions no matter what. But if you're not working hard, you won't, because if you're not working hard, you've just basically put all of that on hold. You're not really doing anything. So, you need to have you need to have, short-term, mid-term, and long-term projects that you're always working on. And your attitude really as an illustrator should be, from this day forward, I am an illustrator and I'm working on these projects and they're my own. And if someone else along the way wants to hire me to work on something of theirs, I might consider it. But this is my life and these are my goals and this is what I'm doing with it. And yep, I might have to have a day job to help me see these goals through, but eventually I will be able to quit my day job and work on this full time because I'm moving forward and I'm going to find the people that value what I'm doing and they're going to support me. And so that's kind of the way I look at it. And I really hope this helps you, Casey, and I hope it helps other artists that are kind of going through the same thing. We want someone to tell us that it's going to be all right and everything's going to be good and everything's going to be safe within 2 years or 5 years or something like that. And we just don't know. It could be sooner and it could take more time. So anyway, I hope those vague answers helped. And I'll catch you guys on the next video.